So I'm 32, just got engaged to my partner, Austin 35, and what should be an exciting time has already turned into a stress-filled nightmare. We've been together for 4 years, and honestly, we've always had a great relationship, no major issues, we communicate well, and we've always been on the same page about important things. But now, wedding planning has started, and my family is making things complicated, as usual. A little background, my family is very traditional, like big wedding traditional. They've always thrown these huge events for any major milestone, and weddings are like a family-wide holiday for us. My older sister got married 3 years ago, and her wedding was basically a citywide event, think 300 guests, and over-the-top reception, and it went on for days. That's the kind of expectation I'm dealing with now. Austin, on the other hand, comes from a completely different background. His family is small and pretty chill. They value simplicity and intimacy in everything they do. From the start, Austin made it clear that he wanted our wedding to be small, like no more than 50 people, and I totally agreed. Honestly, I've never been into the whole giant, showy wedding thing. It's just not me. So, when we got engaged, we were both excited to plan something that felt personal to us, something that wouldn't turn into a circus. We started with the guest list and both agreed on keeping it to just close family and friends. Nothing too crazy. The idea was to have a small, intimate ceremony followed by a casual reception. I was feeling good about it, but as soon as I told my family, everything started spiraling out of control. My mom, who I love dearly but can be intense, was the first to jump in. Before I even finished telling her about our engagement, she was already talking about guest lists, venues, and how we can't possibly have fewer than 200 people at the wedding. I tried to laugh it off at first, but she wasn't joking. She's got this vision in her head of this grand, extravagant event, basically a rerun of my sister's wedding. It's like she didn't even hear me when I said Austin and I want to keep it small. Then the emotional manipulation started, my mom's favorite card to play. She starts talking about how my grandparents would be so disappointed if they weren't there for the biggest day of my life, and how it's important to honor family traditions. I get it, I do, but this is my wedding. I didn't even know how to respond at first. I mean, how do you argue with that without sounding like a terrible person? As if that wasn't enough, my older sister decided to jump in with her 2 cents. She had the huge wedding, so obviously she knows best, right? She started going on about how it's family tradition and that I'll regret not having a big celebration. And of course, she's already offering to help plan it. I can already see where that's going. She'll take over, and before I know it, I'll be walking down the aisle in front of 300 people I barely know. Meanwhile, Austin is standing firm. He's been pretty clear about what he wants from the start, a small, personal wedding. He's not into the idea of being the center of attention at a massive event, and honestly, neither am I. We've talked about it a lot, and I completely agree with him. But now I'm stuck. My family is pushing for this huge event, and I don't want to disappoint them, but I also don't want to turn our wedding into something that feels impersonal and overwhelming for Austin. The real kicker came when my parents offered to cover most of the costs for a larger wedding. Now I'm feeling even more pressure. It's like they're trying to buy their way into getting what they want. I know they mean well, but I'm feeling trapped. If I say no, I feel guilty, like I'm being ungrateful, but if I say yes, I'm betraying Austin's wishes and what we agreed on. It's just one thing after another. Austin is starting to get frustrated, too. He's been patient, but I can tell it's wearing on him. Every time my family brings up the wedding, it's always about the number of guests, the venue, and all these other things we never wanted. It's like our vision for our wedding is getting buried under their expectations. We had our first big argument about it last week. Austin accused me of not standing up to my family, and while I get where he's coming from, I feel like I'm stuck between a rock and a hard place. I want to make everyone happy, but it's becoming impossible. To top it all off, word's getting around to the extended family. Now, I've got aunts and cousins calling to congratulate us, and they're all assuming there's going to be a huge wedding. There are even rumors about potential venues and caterers. I have no idea how it escalated this quickly. It's like my wedding is turning into the next big family event, and I haven't even had a say in it yet. The pressure is getting to me. During a family dinner last weekend, my mom made a passive-aggressive comment about how selfish couples these days don't think about their families when planning weddings. I knew it was directed at me, and I could feel the tension in the room. It was so uncomfortable, and I didn't even know how to respond. So here I am, turning to Reddit. Has anyone else been through something like this? How do you handle the pressure from family while trying to plan a wedding that's true to you and your partner? Any advice would be appreciated, because right now I'm feeling lost. Update 1. Well, here I am again. Things have only gotten worse since I last posted, and I'm starting to feel like I have no control over my own wedding. As soon as the news about our engagement spread, more family members started getting involved. My aunt, who is a wedding planner by the way, was one of the first to jump in. She called me out of the blue, congratulating me on the engagement and offering to help. I thought she meant small advice or recommendations. Nope. She wanted to help by planning a massive 200 guest event. And the worst part? She started throwing around ideas before I even said yes to her help. Next thing I know, she's talking about booking venues that can hold 300 people and floral arrangements that sound more expensive than my entire budget. It didn't stop there. My mom has been relentless too. Every conversation with her revolves around how this wedding is going to be the event of the year, how she's already mentioned it to half the family, and how she's planning to invite people I haven't even spoken to in years. Then came the big bombshell. My mom offered to pay for everything. She said she'd cover the entire wedding, including Austin's outfit, the flowers, the catering, and even extra decorations. It was like she dangled this massive financial offer over my head, subtly implying that if I refused, I'd hurt the family. I could almost hear her saying, "Are you sure you don't want to make things easier on us all?" Meanwhile, Austin has been losing his patience. I can see it every time we talk about the wedding. He's starting to feel like I'm not setting boundaries with my family, and honestly, he's right. We had another argument, and this time it got pretty heated. Austin threatened to elope if my family didn't back off. I don't blame him. This wasn't what we agreed on, and now it feels like our day is slipping away from us. Feeling cornered, I turned to Reddit for advice, and most people suggested I sit down with both Austin and my family to set clear boundaries. They mentioned a compromise, a small ceremony with just immediate family, followed by a bigger reception. That seemed like a good middle ground, so I brought it up with Austin. He wasn't thrilled, but he reluctantly agreed to at least discuss it with my family. When I brought the idea to my mom, though, she completely dismissed it. She waved it off like it was ridiculous and said, "If you're going to do a big reception, why not just go all out with the ceremony too?" It was clear that nothing short of a grand, over-the-top wedding would satisfy her. I tried to reason with her, but she wasn't having it. My dad, who usually stays quiet in situations like this, just sat there nodding along. It wasn't much, but his silence felt like subtle approval of my mom's plan, which only added to the pressure. Austin is growing more frustrated by the day. He feels like I'm not standing up for what we both agreed on, and he's starting to question whether we should even have the wedding at all, if it's going to be such a headache. I get where he's coming from, but it's so hard to say no to my family. They're pushing for this huge event, and I don't want to hurt them, but I also don't want to lose Austin. I feel trapped. Things took a turn for the worse when my sister decided to take over. Without asking me, she started contacting venues and photographers, claiming she had everything under control. Suddenly, it felt like I wasn't even involved in my own wedding planning anymore. I was getting updates from her about vendors she'd booked as if it were all set in stone. It's like she assumed I'd just go along with it because she's done this before. This led to more tense discussions between Austin and me. He brought up the idea of a courthouse wedding again, saying it might be the only way to avoid the family drama. I didn't know what to say. On one hand, I could totally see us having a simple ceremony and being done with all this stress. On the other hand, I can't help but feel guilty about not including my family in what's supposed to be one of the most important days of my life. Reddit, though, has been my saving grace. The post I made got a lot of attention, and people have been super supportive. Most users are urging me to prioritize my relationship with Austin and not let my family's demands take over. It's been comforting to know I'm not alone in dealing with this kind of family pressure. After reading all the comments, I finally mustered up the courage to confront my mom. I explained how much pressure I've been feeling, and that while I appreciate her wanting to help, this wedding is supposed to be about Austin and me. But of course, she flipped the situation, playing the victim. She started saying things like, "I'm just trying to help. Don't you want to make your family happy?" It felt like every time I tried to stand my ground, she'd guilt me into backing down. Now she's giving me the silent treatment. Every call has been short, and she avoids bringing up the wedding altogether. The guilt is eating at me, and I'm starting to worry that this whole situation is going to damage my relationship with my family for good. On top of that, my relationship with Austin is also feeling the strain. We've always been solid, but the stress of all this is starting to take its toll. I can feel the tension between us every time we talk about the wedding, and I'm terrified that if this keeps up, it could actually harm what we've built over the last 4 years. I don't know what to do next. I feel like I'm stuck between my family and the person I love most, and I'm afraid I'm going to lose one of them in the process. Update 2. It's getting worse, guys. Austin brought up eloping again. It's like the third time now, and I can't even blame him. Every time I think we found some middle ground, something happens to pull us right back into this mess. He's exhausted from all the back and forth, and honestly, so am I. But I keep holding out hope that there's a way to keep everyone happy, even though it's starting to feel impossible. After our last argument about the wedding, I decided to meet with my sister. She's been steamrolling through all the plans, so I wanted to talk to her directly and ask her to slow down. I thought if I explained how overwhelmed I was, she'd back off. I told her that Austin and I want a smaller wedding, that the huge guest list is stressing us out, and that we never wanted anything big in the first place. She listened, but then she started going on about how she's just trying to help. And before I could even get a word in, she was already talking about booking more appointments with venues. I realized then that she wasn't going to stop. To her, this is just another big family event that needs to be perfect. I thought maybe my dad would be the voice of reason, so I sat down with him. He's always been more level-headed than my mom when it comes to things like this. He told me he just wants me to be happy, which was a relief to hear, but then he hit me with, "But wouldn't you regret not inviting the whole family?" It felt like no matter what I do, I'm going to disappoint someone. And that guilt, it's weighing me down. I don't want to look back and regret cutting people out, but I also don't want to regret giving in to a wedding that's not what Austin and I envisioned. The breaking point with Austin came a few days later. He sat me down and gave me an ultimatum. Either I set strict boundaries with my family, or he's going to seriously consider postponing the wedding indefinitely. I could tell he wasn't bluffing. He's done with all the family drama, and honestly, I don't blame him. But the idea of postponing the wedding, or worse, losing him over this, it's terrifying. I turned to Reddit again, and the responses have been overwhelmingly supportive. People keep reminding me that the wedding is supposed to be about me and Austin, not about my family. But saying that and living it are two completely different things. I'm trying to stand firm, but every time I try to set boundaries, it feels like I'm getting sucked back in by my family's expectations. In a last-ditch effort to keep the peace, I suggested a new compromise to Austin. I proposed that he have complete control over the ceremony. He could decide everything, from the venue to the guest list, while my family could plan the reception. I thought it was a fair solution. Austin wasn't thrilled, but he agreed to at least think about it. But honestly, I could tell he wasn't convinced. He just wants a simple, meaningful day, and every compromise we make feels like we're drifting further from that. Meanwhile, my mom has switched tactics. Instead of pushing aggressively, she's started using guilt. She's been telling me how disappointed she is that I don't seem to care about family traditions. She's painting this picture where I'm the villain for not wanting to include everyone, and it's working. I can feel the guilt creeping in every time I talk to her. And then, to top it all off, the family group chat exploded. Word got out about our plan for a small ceremony, and suddenly cousins, aunts, uncles, everyone started chiming in. People I haven't spoken to in years were coming out of the woodwork, saying they deserve to be there. The messages were coming in nonstop, and it felt like I was drowning in opinions. The pressure is unreal. Things finally came to a head with Austin. He broke down. He told me he can't handle the stress anymore. He suggested a courthouse wedding again, and said he's done with all the drama. I've never seen him like this before. He's usually so calm and collected, but I think this whole situation has pushed him past his limit. For the first time, I started seriously considering eloping. I'm questioning whether I'm trying too hard to please everyone else at the expense of my relationship with Austin. It's clear that something has to give, and I'm terrified it's going to be my relationship if I don't figure this out soon. Just when I thought things couldn't get worse, my mom reached out directly to Austin. I wasn't even involved. She tried to convince him that a big wedding would make me happy and would help keep our family strong. I can't believe she went behind my back like that. I thought Austin would be furious, but instead he just seemed defeated. He said it felt like my family's opinion was taking priority over our relationship. At a family gathering this past weekend, the tension was unbearable. My aunt, the same one who's been pushing for the huge wedding, made a snide comment about ungrateful children not appreciating their families. It was obvious she was talking about me, and I just felt so isolated. It's like the more I try to stand my ground, the more they turn on me. I've reached my breaking point. I'm starting to think Austin was right all along. Maybe eloping is the only way out of this nightmare. I can't keep bending over backward for everyone. It's my wedding, and no matter what decision I make, someone is going to be upset. At this point, I just need to figure out how to protect my relationship with Austin before I lose it altogether. So I've made a decision. I'm done with the back and forth. I'm going to talk to Austin tonight, and we're going to make a final call about this wedding. Whether we elope, have a small ceremony, or go through with the family drama, we need to be on the same page. I can't keep living like this. Something has to change. Update 3. So, after all the back and forth, the breakdowns, and endless stress, I finally made a decision. I had to take control of this wedding once and for all. I couldn't keep letting my family walk all over me, and I couldn't keep dragging Austin through this nightmare. It was time to set firm boundaries, and if that meant upsetting people, so be it. The first thing I did was schedule a sit-down with my parents. I wasn't sure how it was going to go, but I knew I needed to have this conversation face-to-face. Austin, who has been completely drained by the whole situation, told me he was proud of me for finally taking this step. He reminded me that no matter how things turned out, we were in this together, and the wedding should be about us, not about making my family happy. His support gave me the strength I needed to face what was coming. When I arrived at my parents' house, the tension was already thick in the air. My mom, dad, and sister were all there, waiting. I could tell from the look on my mom's face that she was expecting me to apologize or, at the very least, agree to the massive wedding she had been pushing for. But that wasn't going to happen. I laid everything out, calmly but firmly. I told them that Austin and I had decided to go ahead with a small, intimate wedding, just like we had originally planned. I made it clear that this decision was final. I emphasized that while I love them and value their input, this day is about Austin and me, and I needed them to respect our wishes. As expected, my mom didn't take it well. She became emotional almost immediately, saying that she couldn't understand why I was being so selfish. She kept repeating how she just wanted to share this special moment with the whole family and how this was going to cause a huge rift. Her words stung, but I held my ground. My dad, who is usually quiet during these kinds of discussions, finally spoke up. He said he understood where I was coming from, but warned me that I might regret not including everyone. He mentioned how important family unity is and suggested that the size of the wedding shouldn't matter if it means keeping the family together. His disappointment was obvious, and that hit me hard, but I knew I couldn't back down now. Then came my sister. She's been so involved in planning this massive wedding that she seemed personally offended by my decision. She got defensive, accusing me of ruining the family dynamic by choosing Austin over them. She made it sound like I was letting Austin control everything, which couldn't be further from the truth. This has always been about what we both want, not just what Austin wants. I stood firm, though. I told her that it wasn't about choosing Austin over the family, but about creating a wedding that felt authentic to us. I reminded them that we'd already compromised by considering a larger reception, but that the ceremony would remain small, no matter what. I could see that my sister wasn't happy, but I wasn't going to budge. That's when my mom dropped the bombshell. She gave me an ultimatum. Either I agree to a larger wedding that includes extended family, or she and the rest of the family wouldn't attend at all. The room went silent after she said it, and I could feel the weight of her words hanging in the air. This was exactly the kind of pressure I had been dreading, but I knew in that moment that I couldn't give in. I looked at her and told her, as calmly as I could, that while I would love for her to be there, I wasn't going to change my plans. If she and the rest of the family didn't want to attend, that was their choice. The look on her face broke my heart, but I knew I had to stay strong. She didn't take it well. She told me she needed time to think about it and left the room in tears. My dad followed her, and my sister just sat there in shock. The conversation ended on a sour note, and I left their house feeling torn but resolute. I had done what I needed to do, but it didn't make the situation any easier. Of course, the first thing I did when I got home was update Reddit. I needed emotional support after that conversation, and Reddit didn't disappoint. Users rallied around me, encouraging me to stay strong and reminding me that this was about my relationship with Austin, not about making my family happy. Their words were comforting. especially when I started doubting myself. Austin reassured me that I had done the right thing. He told me how proud he was of me for standing up for us, and that no matter what happened, we were going to have the wedding we wanted. He suggested we start focusing on planning the small, intimate ceremony to keep our minds on something positive. I agreed. It was time to move forward. But of course, the drama didn't end there. Over the next few days, my mom gave me the silent treatment. She didn't call, didn't text, nothing. The cold shoulder hurt more than I thought it would, and I started wondering if I had damaged my relationship with her for good. Word spread fast through the family. Soon I was getting calls from aunts, uncles, and cousins, all offering their unsolicited opinions. Some accused me of being selfish, while others quietly supported my decision. It was like the family was dividing into two camps, and I was stuck in the middle. The pressure was still there, but for the first time I felt like I was finally in control of the situation. Now, Austin and I are moving forward with our plans for the small ceremony. It's going to be just us, our closest friends, and immediate family, if they choose to come. I don't know what's going to happen with my parents, but I know that no matter what, Austin and I are going to make this day ours. And that's all that really matters. Update 4. It's been about a week since the tense family meeting, and things have taken a turn I wasn't expecting. My mom reached out with a surprising decision that shook me. She told me that unless we agree to have the big wedding with extended family, she and the rest of my immediate family aren't going to attend. Hearing that was like a punch to the gut. I thought maybe, after the last conversation, they'd at least come around a little. But no, it feels like they've doubled down. I was heartbroken, but at the same time, I knew I couldn't give in. After everything Austin and I have been through, this wedding needs to be about us and what we want. It's just hard to accept that my own family might not even show up for one of the most important days of my life. Thankfully, Austin's family has been amazing. His parents, sensing the growing tension, stepped in with support I didn't even know I needed. They've been so excited about the small, intimate wedding we've planned, and they've reassured me that no matter what happens with my family, they're here for us. It's been a huge relief knowing that we have their support, especially as things with my family continue to spiral. As much as Austin's family has been there for us, I've started feeling more and more isolated from my own. My mom hasn't spoken to me since the last conversation, and I've been getting the cold shoulder from pretty much everyone. Some cousins have reached out, not to congratulate us, but to express disappointment that they won't be invited to the ceremony. It's like they're mad at me for trying to do something small, even though it's not their wedding. I feel like an outsider in my own family. Austin brought up eloping again. He thinks it might be the best way to escape all this drama. I'm tempted, honestly. At this point, it seems like it might be the only way for us to have the day we want without all this stress. But a part of me still holds on to hope that things with my family can be mended, at least somewhat, before we make any drastic decisions. I don't want to cut them out completely, even if they're making things impossible right now. Last weekend, we had another family dinner, and it was as tense as ever. My mom refused to discuss the wedding. She barely looked at me the whole night, and the room was full of passive-aggressive comments from various relatives. And it was like everyone was waiting for me to apologize or change my mind. But I didn't. I sat there, quietly eating, wondering how things had gotten this bad. At the end of the night, my sister pulled me aside. She made one final plea for me to reconsider the big wedding. She said that my decision was hurting the entire family, and that I should think about what's best for everyone, not just myself and Austin. It was frustrating, to say the least. I get that she's invested in this, but it feels like no one is even considering how hard this has been on me and Austin. I stood my ground, though. I told her firmly that the decision is final. It's not about being selfish, it's about having a wedding that feels right for us. I told her I was disappointed that the family couldn't be happy for us without making demands, but that's where we are now. She didn't take it well, but I wasn't going to back down. After that, I went straight back to Reddit for validation, and as always, the community came through. The support I've been getting from Reddit has honestly been one of the only things keeping me sane through all of this. So many people have shared their own stories of family conflict over weddings, and it helps to know I'm not alone. People praised me for standing up for myself and reminded me that at the end of the day, this wedding is about me and Austin, no one else. Now that we've put our foot down, Austin and I have started planning the small wedding in earnest. We chose a beautiful, intimate venue, exactly what we wanted from the start. We've booked a photographer, and we've been working on the guest list, which we're keeping at around 50 people, just close friends and family who genuinely support us. Of course, the drama didn't stop there. When my extended family found out that we were moving forward with the small wedding, things escalated. Some family members were furious about not being invited, while others quietly sent their well wishes. It's been a mixed bag, but I've decided to focus on the positive support instead of the negativity. Out of nowhere, my dad sent me a private message. He told me that he's disappointed with how things turned out, but that he still loves me and hopes we have a beautiful wedding. It was a small olive branch, and while it didn't fix everything, it did mean a lot to hear that from him. I know it's going to take time for my relationship with my parents to heal, but at least there's hope. Meanwhile, Austin's excitement for the wedding has been growing. He's been getting more and more into the planning, and I can see how much it means to him to have the day reflect who we are as a couple. It's a relief to finally be moving forward without the weight of family expectations dragging us down. We're both looking forward to a day that's all about us, free from drama. That being said, I can't shake the mixed feelings. I'm excited about the wedding, but there's still a sadness lingering over the fact that my family won't be fully involved. I've talked to Austin about it, and he's reassured me that we're doing the right thing. I know he's right, but it's hard not to wish things were different. Now that the guest list is finalized and everything is falling into place, I'm starting to feel a sense of relief. Austin's parents have offered to help with some of the final details, and it feels like we're finally in a good place with the planning. The wedding is only a few weeks away now, and while I know the family drama won't just magically disappear, at least Austin and I are confident in the decision we've made. There's a calm before the storm right now, and for the first time in a while, I feel like we're on solid ground. But I can't help but wonder what's going to happen next with my family, especially after the wedding. I guess we'll have to wait and see. Update 5. The wedding day finally came, and it was everything Austin and I had hoped for. We had kept it intimate, just like we wanted from the start, around 50 people, mostly close friends and Austin's immediate family. The ceremony took place at a beautiful outdoor venue, surrounded by trees and a light breeze. As we exchanged vows, I felt this overwhelming sense of relief. It was the day we had envisioned, filled with love, and the best part was that we stayed true to ourselves. After the ceremony, Austin's parents pulled us aside. They were beaming with pride and happiness, telling us how beautiful everything had turned out. Their support meant the world to me, especially since my family wasn't there. Austin's family has embraced me in ways I didn't expect, and their warmth brought a comfort that was both surprising and much needed. But even with all that joy, there was still a part of me that felt the absence of my family. As I looked around at the small gathering, I couldn't help but wonder if they regretted not being there. I tried to push the thought aside and focus on the happiness of the day, but it lingered in the background like an itch I couldn't quite scratch. Our friends were amazing, though. They rallied around us, offering heartfelt congratulations and reassuring me that we had done the right thing by sticking to our original plan. Their support helped lift my spirits, and as the night went on, Austin and I shared toasts with our guests, grateful for the love that surrounded us. It was the perfect way to end a day that could have easily been ruined by the family drama. One thing that stuck out to me, though, was the eerie silence on social media. I know it sounds trivial, but none of my family members posted anything about the wedding or offered any public congratulations. It felt deliberate, like they were trying to pretend the wedding hadn't even happened. It hurt more than I expected, but I tried not to let it cloud the day. Later that night, after the reception, I got a private message from my dad. It caught me off guard because I hadn't heard much from him in the days leading up to the wedding. In the message, he apologized for not being there and said he wished he could have found a way to bridge the gap between my wishes and the family's expectations. He ended the message by telling me he loved me and hoped we could heal from this in the future. I didn't cry during the ceremony, but that message had me in tears. There was still no word from my mom, though. Her silence has been the hardest part. I wondered if she'd ever reach out, or if this wedding conflict would be the thing that permanently strained our relationship. Not having her there on such a significant day, it felt like a wound that wouldn't heal. After the wedding, Austin and I went on a short honeymoon to decompress. We both needed a break from everything. It was a small getaway, just a few days to relax and reflect on what we'd been through. Austin reassured me that we had made the right decision, and as we talked, I realized how much stronger our relationship had become because we navigated all this family drama together. We were united, and that made everything worth it. But of course, the family gossip didn't stop. While we were on our honeymoon, one of my cousins texted me, letting me know that the family had been gossiping about the wedding. Some relatives were apparently outraged that they hadn't been invited, while others admitted that a small ceremony was probably for the best. It was almost funny, considering that those same people had pushed so hard for a massive event, and now some of them were quietly admitting we had done the right thing. When we got back from the honeymoon, I posted a final update on Reddit, detailing the wedding day and the fallout with my family. I didn't expect much, but the post went viral. Thousands of comments poured in, with people praising me for sticking to my boundaries and sharing their own stories of family drama around weddings. The validation was overwhelming, and reading all those comments from people who understood what I'd been through gave me a sense of peace I hadn't felt in months. The more I read through the comments, the more my perspective shifted. I realized that the wedding was perfect because it was true to Austin and me. We had created a day that was about us, not about pleasing other people, and that's what made it special. I started to feel less guilty about my family's absence, knowing that we had done what was right for our relationship. Then, out of the blue, my mom called. I wasn't sure what to expect, but I answered. The conversation was tense at first, but she eventually admitted that she regretted not attending the wedding. She explained that she had been hurt by our decision to exclude extended family, but now she realized it wasn't about excluding them personally. She seemed to understand, at least a little bit, where we were coming from. We had a difficult, emotional conversation. I told her how much her absence had hurt and explained that the wedding wasn't about rejecting the family, but about staying true to what Austin and I wanted. She didn't say much, but I could tell she was listening. By the end of the call, we reached what I'd call a fragile reconciliation. We weren't fully healed, but it felt like a first step toward repairing our relationship. It's going to take time, and I'm not sure if things will ever go back to the way they were before. But for now, there's a glimmer of hope, and that's enough. Looking back, I wouldn't change a thing. Our wedding day was exactly what it was meant to be, about Austin and me, surrounded by the people who truly supported us. And if my family couldn't be part of that, at least I know we made the right decision for ourselves.